Hello, welcome to the ice cream interviews.
Is that how you started? With the
Oh, you gotta go 1, 2, 3, 4. Ice cream for ice cream.
Actually, that's a trick. What you're doing is that's your clap for sound, isn't it? Yes, you're slim. Where you're much more intelligent than you look.
I always make sure that the clap goes in very well. A nice little ice cream, eh?
Okay.
You know what's significant
this is
for
actually
me?
very. I don't really eat ice cream and sugar and stuff anymore.
Yeah,
I used to, but as you get older, your body's like, hey, listen,
Yeah.
I've got a message for you. So I stopped. So this is very special to eat ice cream on an arbitrary weekday morning.
In the morning. And you don't teach your kids, they say.
No, they freaking know. My kids eat very well. They cheat on weekends, but in the week is
What do you mean very well? Like expensive ice cream?
no. Like ice cream's weekends only. And if you get the law, they eat.
Lekker, man.
So much so that when we go traveling, because they come with me when I do Survivor. And then when you go to these islands, you don't always have access to like a fresh fruit and vegetables. And the thing they miss the most, apart from meat, want hulle is almal vleisvreters, they love eating meat, is broccoli.
Oh, wow.
And cucumber, fresh broccoli and cucumber that you get at your local deli here in South Africa, which you can't find. It's not. Listen, we're so blessed with food in this country, you know, accessible food.
I juice those things. I don't like the texture of.
So you still haven't grown up, really?
No.
That's why we're eating ice cream.
That's why it's the ice cream interview. You know what?
Although you look like a 22-year-old in terms of your physicality, so I suppose it makes sense that you're still eating ice cream.
Thanks for the compliments. You too.
No, I think you win.
Life's not a competition.
No. You remember the photograph of us when we did our naked torso shoot for 7 Laan years ago? You, me, Neil, and Frank. I think you win, man, so far. Just not only staying the same, I think we've all stayed the same, but even looking better than those.
That's 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And I met you with the interview before we started on 7 Laan. Not the interview, the auditions.
Yeah, the auditions, and we were both so very nervous.
You tell that story so well, though.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell that story quickly?
We've got time for it.
Of course, we've got time.
So when we came into the audition, we were both sitting there, we're nervous, and really, we don't really know what we're auditioning for, because we did first a reading audition where we did a scripted audition. Then they said, okay, we like you guys. Some of us got called back, others were let go. Come back in an hour or 2 hours, and you're going to do another audition, but it's going to be improv. And we were like, what? So we came back, and they put the two of us in a room. And there were 3 people there now. First time there was only one. Second time was 3 people. I think Annie Basson was there. I think Donnie was there. Everyone, not Annie Basson. Annie. What's that his surname?
Annie and Donnie Wittendal.
Donnie Wittendal. And they were sitting there, so it was very daunting. And then me and you were so freaking nervous, but we started freaking riffing. I mean, we were riffing. So they kept throwing scenarios at us, and we were dropping it left, right. But in our heads, we were competing for a part on 7 Laan. Little did we know, we were both, in line for a part. But essentially, we thought we were competing for one part. So it was a riff off. It was an act off.
I remember it was 2 brothers.
They were trying to drop each other, so they kept throwing us scenarios. And one scenario was these 2 brothers. The one has just found out. You just found out that I have had an affair with your girlfriend, and you are
such a soap storyline, eh?
And you come in and you start hacking at me. I whip back at you and you hack back at me, and we're in this battle. And at one point, you say to me, you drop it, you say, well, because we're supposed to have this fight, and then you reveal that you know that I've been sleeping with your girlfriend. And you come in and you say, well, I found out that you're sleeping with my girlfriend. And you came at me like, dun, dun, mic drop. And I was like, oh, geez, what am I going to say to those? And I looked, and suddenly out of nowhere came, but you were doing drugs. And you went, and I could see that we were both like, and then we just went back into it again.
Why didn't you share your drugs?
It was so beautiful because we were just trying to top each other all the time, which meant, I think, we were sending each other to a next level and to a next level. We were digging so deep, and what happened was, we both got a freaking part. I think they liked what was happening so much. I thought we got to not only give each of them a part, but we got to make sure they work together, which is how it happened. George and Stain, we worked together all the time.
I wish I stayed longer those days. I should have stayed like as long as you stayed there.
I think I stayed
because I was there for 2 years, but it wasn't that medium kind of like made me very anxious and nervous. At that stage, I didn't realize that
medium
I should
was
stay
rough.
away from.
I mean, I remember we would be working, and then we'd all the time there'd be old salted actors, wat is gesout acteur in Engels, just legendary actors would come in, and they would come and work, and they would be so blown away by the medium and how fast-paced it was, and how few opportunities you have for a retake. And how quick it happened, and the volume of work that they would be flustered. We're talking about people who are used to working on film and in theatre, and we would be like, "What's up, man?" We just because you get into that vibe.
That was your first professional job as well.
It was one of the first. Yeah, one of the first was my first long contract. Yeah, my first permanent long work as an actor. Before that, I did theatre, and then I did some stints on other soaps. But what I realised there was that the pace and the sheer volume of work we had to squeeze into an episode shoot in a day was monumental. So when you leave having started out like that, everything else you do is a walk in the freaking park.
Yeah.
You know, and you've also got this really deep level of just that old school theatrical discipline which is brought into this, because if you don't have that, you're screwed. I remember the first few times me and you were caught not knowing our lines.
I've been caught with that because of certain things in my life. I get so nervous. I get so anxious. So I know my lines. I get like little anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
What's very significant for me about sitting in Gold Bay is that both of you and I, and that's one of the great things that I think we have in common, is that we did national service in the South African Navy. Because I remember when we met each other the first time.
That's right.
You went.
Yeah.
You were in the Navy, and I was like, I was in the Navy, and we started talking about that just before the audition, and I was in Simonstown, and how many people do you know? Because I volunteered.
Wow.
I was in the 1996 intake. That Saldanha Bay.
I was in 91, and mine was the last conscription year. So
you had to go.
So I was conscripted. Yeah. In fact, in my year, a lot of guys didn't turn up, and usually they'd be followed with disciplinary action, but they just left it because why?
Just after that, it was the turn of the regime.
Yeah.
And then that fell away, and it's like selling alcohol in COVID.
Yeah.
Everyone that got arrested, those cases just got caught. Yeah. So same, thrown out of court. Same with not going.
You know what I found out was
doing
so
national service.
When I just after I left the Navy, and I'm sure this will come in later in our conversation, maybe we started partying, house music and underground rave music came to South Africa. But interestingly, I watched a documentary the other day about those times. I wasn't aware of this. I was just a 19-year-old freaking kid who's discovering freaking nightclubs and things. We weren't allowed to have international music in South Africa. Remember, all the boycotts and the sanctions and the things made sure that we were cut off from the rest of the world. I mean, I remember traveling and seeing versions of chocolates that I've known all my life that we didn't get in South Africa because it just wasn't imported. And it was such a mind bender. Now you go anywhere and you're like, oh, geez, every city looks the same. But back then, I remember that I saw this documentary and they were talking about how the music that the DJs were playing in the underground nightclubs was brought in by the aerostesses that flew to London and flew overseas. Yeah. And they would smuggle it in and sell it to the DJs, the vinyls, and the DJs would spin those vinyls.
My cousin.
We thought underground was just a cool word to say, like the party was like it was underground, it was illegal music.
My cousin brought in the LP for the Joshua Tree.
What?
From U2 on vinyl, and it was banned because at one stage Bono says you're free Nelson Mandela and whatever.
Yeah. We weren't aware of these things, and when we were there, we just woke up in this world.
I just wanted to skateboard.
Yeah.
I remember like giving all the black people working in our road in the gardens. I befriended them all. It didn't bother me. It I didn't grow up in a house as well where
That's what was happening. What was interesting is the black underground party movement and the white underground party movement were meeting underground because they were loving each other, one another's music. I think Bob Mabena was one of the big DJs of that time, and they were having all these, and there was this merging because the culture was very similar,
Yeah.
And I mean, the most amazing, interesting people I met were at these raves, and there was no color at the raves.
were you a raver? Were you a raver?
No. Before that, so when it started out, it was house. It was house.
Deep
It
house.
was progressive house, not deep house. It was.
I don't know what the
progressive
difference is between progressive and deep house.
As it got older, it became deep house, and it started moving into all of this, like I don't know where it's now, but back then, when I was out, dubstep and all kinds of weird crap was coming in, which I didn't enjoy at all. I still loved music that had a rhythm and beat and tin drums in the back, and there were instruments that you could hear that weren't too electronic. But there was that lovely house beat, and so we loved that. We partied into the early hours of the morning, and I left that world just in time. A lot of my friends stayed back in that world and and it was a time I left. What
do you mean that world, that lifestyle?
That lifestyle, that party.
That lifestyle of
because
partying.
it came hand in hand with ecstasy, cocaine, drinking, alcohol.
Did you do cocaine when you were younger?
There were times where I partook in what we would call then soft drugs, which was stuff that you could snort or a pill that you could drop. And it was part and parcel of this underground world. And then smoking marijuana.
But you don't have an addiction problem. I don't. You took it and you
I was addicted to the lifestyle, not to the feeling necessarily. I loved being able to party all night and not to get tired and wake up and see the sunshine. But what I hated, what my problem was, is there was this terrible come down, like a tremendous come down. And I would be down. We would have a party for like 2, maybe 3 days, and then I would crash for 2 or 3 days. I had friends who could sleep for a few hours, wake up, and they feel fine. And I couldn't understand how could they feel fine and carry on. I needed 2 days of prayer and extreme guilt and condemnation and conviction before I could eventually come out. And I realized now what was happening was every time I was engaging in that lifestyle, I would separate myself from God. And he didn't leave me, because I can tell you miracle stories of situations where I should maybe have been dead, and miraculous moments. My friends were with me. And we experienced it together, where we're like, okay, we have angels, and to this day I know it for a fact. But the point is that I was removed. God was saying to me, okay, you want to dive in there, because it's against the Christian faith, my religion, to take part in pharmakeia, which is a type of sorcery and ingesting of psychedelics, which open your spirit to the spiritual world. God says it's forbidden because you don't know what's coming in. You want to communicate spirit world, you do it through Jesus Christ, through the Holy Spirit. I knew that, but still I played in that. And so I went in that world, and every time I went in, no matter how great the party was, and there were some great parties in the beginning, the come downs always outweighed the rises.
And
it was like God is saying, I'm taking my hands off and I'm showing you what it feels like to be without me. So I can say that I've had a glimpse of hell, and there's no fire and coals and a man or demon with the horns. That it's an absolute separation of everything God represents: love, peace, beauty, purpose, contentment. Doesn't exist if God's not there. It's God not being there means that's not there, and that not being there is hell. And the only way to compare it is to say it's like standing on burning coals with fire everywhere, and fearsome creatures who, like you, are devoid of those things, which means all they have is the equal opposite: hatred, anger, discontentment, impatience. And imagine being surrounded by people like that.
How old were you when you experienced that?
Very, very 19, 20,
Wow.
21. Yeah.
And then
Just after the Navy, yeah.
when did you seriously started your path with Jesus? I call it becoming.
Yeah.
I call it becoming. Nowadays, I'm so afraid of going like I'm a Christian because, gosh, that's. So I call myself, I'm becoming.
Yeah.
I'm becoming in worden of something massive and transcending into
sanctification. So no matter when you give your heart to Christ, you're saved. But then begins your process of sanctification. Sanctification is when you get saved, not only are you saying, Lord, I'm lost without you, I'm a sinner, and I need you. Firstly, your forgiveness, which you can have because of what he did on the cross. People don't understand why that had to happen, but the simple fact is every sin leads to death. Some sort of death, and ultimately, eventually, physical death, and worse, eternal death. So what Christ did on the cross is he overcame death, which means he paid for what you should get for the wages of your sin. So firstly, you recognize you have this in you. And then once you get saved, no matter where you are, what age, now you get sanctified. So Christ, the Holy Spirit, comes into your life and starts working with you, on you, what you've referred to now as sanctification.
Yeah.
You're being sanctified.
It's just interesting. You talking about you stopped that lifestyle and how it made you feel like 3 days after. So that's the vicious circle. So what guys do like me, we just do another line of coke to feel better.
Yeah, but eventually it doesn't
And then
work.
when you do the line of coke, you feel guilty.
Yeah.
And when you feel guilty, you go like, oh, I'm not worth anything. Let's just do another line of coke, or let's just drink some more. Let's smoke another box of cigarettes. So, as an addict, full-blown addict, it's such a privilege saying today that I have been saved absolutely by that life that spirals down into this hell. And when you talk about you are in hell, bro.
You're in hell.
Because you separate yourself from God, you separate yourself from other people, you separate yourself from yourself.
From yourself. Well, that's, what
so you just kind of like there. People try to reach out to you.
Well, you're not.
And you're not there.
You're not there.
Your soul is not there.
You see, because our identity has been stolen. When you're lost like that, you have no identity. In fact, I would only get my personality at one stage. I got to a stage when I was so socially inept. If I didn't have something going on in my bloodstream, that if I went to an event or a party, I wouldn't be me. And then the minute I had something, I would step into the Nico persona.
Yeah.
And I had a persona.
Yeah.
And I was in my head edgy, and we had the cool clothes and the cool boots, and we were dressing. I mean, we were the hippies of the 90s, in the early 2000s, and so we that's what we thought we were freaking cooking. And I mean, I remember bumping into mates of mine that weren't in that world from school, and the way they would look at me, maybe with pity or just worry, and I would see envy instead of what was actually going on. They were looking at me going, dude, you're so messed up, and I was going, you're going, dude, I wish I was as cool as you. My perception was also misguided, so I lost my sense of who I am.
Yeah, so you compare yourself to other people the whole time.
I remember.
Other people's success, other people's...
I remember I used to wear a cross whenever I went out, because I knew what I was doing was wrong. So I would wear a cross under my clothes. And I think, okay, well, God's going to protect me with a cross. I watched one too many horror movies. And you see, the cross is worthless without faith, and if you have faith, then you must follow your faith with action. First comes faith.
I love what you're saying. Is since I've that's made the big difference for me. As I told you, I got baptized last year, and it's action. Faith is action. Yeah. Faith is discipline. Faith is routine. Love is action. Love is not just a word. And
what is action? The faith comes first, and then you're compelled to action.
Yeah.
A lot of religions make a mistake and say, no, action first, and then you'll have faith and forgiveness. No, faith and forgiveness comes first, and then you're moved to action because of that.
Yeah.
Because you've been forgiven, because you've been redeemed, you just want
You want
to
to.
help everyone that you can.
Also, you want a healthy body. You
Absolutely.
want a clear soul.
Yes, because
So then we come to the
now
whole
you see
mind,
what
body, soul thing.
Yeah.
And you want to keep your mind. I know you love reading.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm busy with this amazing book now, How to Know Others Deeply and How to Be Seen Deeply.
Yeah.
That's the title of the book. And how it talks about...
That reminds me of a book I'm reading called The Bible. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But it's true.
But exactly. So we need to start talking about our suffering.
Yeah.
That's how you actually get to know
Yeah.
people, is the deepest, but you need to choose that because...
We hide that part, don't we, throughout our lives? You know, so you and I, we've known each other for decades. But there are certain, I mean, when you contacted me a couple of months back and, and said, listen, if there's anything I ever did, I mean, I don't know if you mind sharing this, but you sent a message out and said, if there's anything I ever did or said, or if I behaved in a way that was ever disrespectful or just, unacceptable to you, I want to apologize. And I racked my brains and I couldn't think of one thing. I was like, dude, I honestly don't remember you like that at all. I remember you fondly with just a great energy and always ready to laugh and smile and passionate. I don't remember anything else, and so I didn't know what was going on behind.
I remember I told you on the phone as well. I used to be a master of hiding the dark side.
We all are. We all are, because
So I sent out that message, I think, to about 20 people, saying, listen, if I've ever done, so funny enough, is if you look at the 12 steps of recovery, there's no timeline on that, but those steps are worked out so, I think it's a divinity thing. I think it's a divine thing how the 12 steps came about. It's Christian guys that put it together.
it's a process.
And then suddenly I got this feeling, I was triggered by something. Okay, so when you're an addict, it's spawned from abandonment, okay? Abandonment means that you are treated as if you're not valuable enough, okay? How do you treat people that's valuable to you? You spend time with them, okay? And that whole thing just, yes, ek kan nie onthou wat ek wou gesê het nie.
Well, I suppose that later then becomes the very thing that you battle with, because it never goes away. You have to deal with it. And so you actually become, isn't it interesting how you become the perpetrator of the thing that was oppressing you? You abandoned yourself eventually.
Yeah.
Like you were.
So I missed my train of thought now.
That's okay. It's the ice cream and the sugar.
It's that sugar rush now.
But yeah, while you think of that, it's so important to know that probably, the age we're at now is when you realize these things, because you can look back with a broader sort of data set, which is your life, and you can go, hey, I can see patterns now. In the beginning, when the pattern's only 3 strings long, you can't see the ups and downs clearly, but when you're looking back over quite a few decades and you're seeing, hang on a second, I can see when this was when I was up, what was going on, when I was down, what was going on. Now you actually have a data set that you can analyze and go, wow, I'm starting to see when this was this, this was triggers. You can start looking at your triggers and have the wisdom not only to recognize it, but also go, firstly, I don't want that, because you've been given free choice. You're a free agent. I can change it.
So that's what I wanted to say. So the 12 steps. So the 9th step in the 12 steps is apologizing sincerely to people.
Yeah.
Where you should actually go knock on their door and figuratively wash their feet, or literally wash their feet.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's not always possible. So I sent people. Eat your ice cream. You need to. It's an ice cream. I wanted to dip it down.
Eat your ice cream. You have.
So the 9th step is where you start apologizing. But so I went very naturally into that stage. So that's when I started sending the message, because I felt now it's time.
Yeah.
You know, now it's time that I really make peace with what I've done. And look, I burnt the house down there before I realized, my word, who am I? What am I?
Rock bottom.
Yeah. So, yeah, interesting stuff. But let's talk about. Yeah, let's talk about what difference make a great relationship with God makes in our lives.
I'll tell you what, you know, when I gave my heart to Jesus when I was about 12, 13, very young, 12 years old is what I remember. But little did I know what I was getting myself into. You know, when you start your walk with Christ, especially at that young age, you still have to go through life. And I had pointed moments throughout my life where I felt, I mean, I've had some great moments, like really, really special moments. You've messed on yourself. I'm not going to wipe it though. Ons is nie sulke goeie pelle.
Wipe me.
Ain't gonna happen.
Wipe me.
So pointed moments in my life where I know I had God's impact powerfully when I was 12 and I gave my heart to Him. When my dog ran away and he was running into the road and God intervened and stopped the cars, and it was a miraculous moment, but maybe my childlike mind embellished and made it into a bigger moment. I remember it being very poignant. But when I was 18 in the Navy, and I met a spirit which, as I remember, it was Jesus Christ Himself talking to me, took my hand while I was wide awake in the middle of the day. That happened. And then more, pertinent to this conversation was when I had been for 5, maybe 6 years in this world, in this life, and I wanted out, and I've been wanting out for a long time. And I remember I went to this party and all my friends were there, my good friends, but also friends, and there was lots of things going on there, lots of drugs going down, and I just didn't want this anymore. And I remember excusing myself as I arrived. It was still early, which at that stage, early was 11:30 at night. You start going out and then you party until sunrise. So it was like 11, 12 o'clock. And the party was about to start, and I walked in and I greeted everyone, but I didn't want to be there, man. So I excused myself and I slipped out and I went to the bathroom. So it was in a building, and the bathrooms were separate from this area. And I went into the bathrooms and it was dead quiet, because it was a shopping center actually, and the shopping center's bathrooms, and it was after hours. So it was just this shop where the party was that was there. So it was a dead quiet center. I went into the lavatory and I went onto my knees in a cubicle. Dirty toilet cubicle. I went onto my knees next to the toilet and I said my prayer. I said, Jesus Christ, my Lord, if I get up here and I walk into that party, I'm going straight back into that world, and I don't want to. And I know that if you don't do something, I will be going back in there. And I'm begging you, please save me, save me, save me. And I remember getting up off that dirty floor. I remember walking into that party and saying to my friend, who's passed away now, I've got to go. And he said to me, what do you mean? You just got here. I've got some free. I said, I've got to go. And he knew immediately what I meant. He was like, oh, I said to him, because I told him, and he knew I was trying to get out of this world. And he took me and he hugged me so tight. And he looked me in the face and he said, I'll see you around. And I said, I'll see you around. And we both knew that we'd never see each other around. And I walked out of there, and as I walked away, I just felt the scales. It's just the more I walked, the freer I became. I remember my little bucky. I had a little 1400 Nissan bucky standing at the end of the parking lot, walking up to it, and it felt like the safest place. Walking away, and I could hear the music thudding behind me, and as I left it all behind. I got in that car and I drove away, and I never touched another thing again in my life. And soon after that, I started studying drama, and I met Christy in drama school. So I started the career I would come to love, and I met the woman that would become my wife, and we're married to this day.
Look, I started dealing with this only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I tried it. I tried to walk away, but sometimes you need to look at the roots of, you know?
That's part of the same.
And so funny is same thing. I went on a 3-day binge, and I got to friends of mine's house, and I was there over the toilet, and I started praying. I said, God, please, if I don't die tonight.
Interesting. It takes us to literally to the you defecate. Like this. This is
what's gonna.
This is where you're going.
This is where you're going.
Excrement.
And I prayed, and I said, listen, God, if you don't let me die tonight, then I will quit. I will quit everything. I'll quit cigarettes. The next day I woke up, and I quit everything for nearly 2 years. But my relationship with God was still not, I would listen to gospel music. I neglected prayer. So that's where your relationship is. Sure. Okay? And then I started getting these challenges and challenged myself. And I started mountain biking, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to do the epic. Then I finished the epic.
So almost these things started becoming your new addictions.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So someone told me that. They said, listen, you're back into an addictive lifestyle. You must sort out the root of what's causing you to plug the holes. Okay. And the year after that, I cycled from Cairo to Cape Town. The night I finished the epic, okay, how do I celebrate? That's now after 2 years of no alcohol, no drugs, no cigarettes.
Incredible fitness.
What do? I'm going to drink a tequila. Okay, leave it. I think I had 3 tequilas. Leave it, boom. The year of that December, I started drinking Jägermeister again. Then I cycled from Cairo to Cape Town, and I went like
our Jägermeister party.
Ugh.
We won't talk about it now. I don't want to break your stride, but that's never a good thing, that stuff.
So then I cycled from Cairo to Cape Town, and when I came back, I would celebrate.
Yeah.
And then I started drinking brandy and coke.
Did you drink ever on those trips?
Never.
No.
So I went like, no, yeah.
So you go
I can't go back to how I lived. Yeah. But then I came back, and here in Cape Town, I had a couple of beers. A week after that, I bought a box of smokes. A week after that, I had a line of cocaine again. And I was a heavy smoker. Because it's OCD. It's like if I feel bad and I get triggered by something, it's like, where are the smoke? And I was like this.
I remember. One thing I remember about you always is very nervous, very fidgety.
Yeah, it's gone. It's all gone.
But interesting you say all of these things because. Yeah.
So the point that I want to make is that it's. What's the point that I want to make?
It'll come to you now.
Maybe that is the point that I want to make, is that sometimes you need some professional help.
Well, yes.
And then it just spiraled down and down and down until the whole house burned down, and then I booked myself into a little rehab, and I came out of there like I came out of there and I went like, gosh, I have no idea who I am. I have no idea who I am. And 3 years later, I can proudly say that I am finding my true identity in Jesus Christ, which is, I don't see it any other way. It's such a difficult path to take that there's some days I go like, oh God, why are you putting me through this? Why can't I just, and then I think about it, because I journal and wake up at 5 o'clock in the mornings and then I would go like, and I'd write down, I go like, what are my options of going through life? And I write, gosh, I can't write any options down anymore except for walking in the footprints of Jesus, which is the awakening of that for me is just, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't think one person that I've been to rehab with has made it. They've all relapsed. So the power that God gives you to overcome grief and suffering is immense, but you still need to go through it.
Yeah.
You can't just go like, okay, God, please help me now, and then you open your eyes and everything is gone. You deal with it on a psychological level, on a philosophical level, on a medical level, on a mind, body, soul level. You go through that. And why I'm saying this, when you started talking about how you feel stuff just falling off your shoulders, for the first time in my life, I feel like I don't have to hide. Now that I'm talking about this, now that I'm not embarrassed anymore, now that I'm not shy anymore, now I'm not ashamed anymore, I can truly feel the joy of life. And I can also wish everyone around me the absolute best of, we don't believe in luck, the absolute best in love. And at last, at my tender young age, I can learn what love is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think maybe we need 5 decades on this planet to figure that one out. I think, look, we're not going to stop. Listen, you and I can have this interview in about 50 years, and we'll have a whole new set of realizations to show each other, but at least this time, none of it would have been wasted running after the wrong things. But just like children, when you become a parent, you see this, and I think that's why God, we're made in His image. And the images that He gives us of parenthood, when you become a parent, you have these children that you love unconditionally. They've done nothing yet except pee and poop and cry, to sleep deprive you and steal your time, and yet you love them. You'll give your life for them. You will do anything for them. You will die for them. How is that possible? What is that? That's madness. And atheists or evolutionists will explain that away as a natural instinct. Oh no, it's not just that. There's a love there, and one knows the difference. But what's interesting is you get a picture a glimpse of God. He loves you from the get-go, even while you're partying and drinking and the pooping and the urinating and the screaming, the demanding food, demanding sleep, demanding warmth, demanding clothes. He loves you through that, but He knows, listen, this demanding nonsense is going to stop at some point. So I'm gonna look after you for a bit, but at some point
you got to stand on your own feet.
Show you that you got to stand on your own.
You got to fly.
And then he takes you to a point, and then like the bird gets kicked out of the nest and he must fly. We get kicked out of the nest. God says, listen, at some point, I want you standing back in the garden with me. This time by free choice, after having sampled the two options, with me, without me, and having chosen me, so that when I walk with you in the garden, hand in hand, as the sun rises, you are there because you want to be there, not because I placed you there. Isn't it amazing? Your baby is born into the world and is placed in the house with you, doesn't necessarily want to be there. What's amazing for parents when their kids leave the home and then come back to them because they want to give up time. They say, Mom, I want to come and sleep over for the weekend. I want to be with you. Now they're not there because they have to be there because they need food, they're there because they want to be close to you. But that's the most beautiful feeling. That's what God wants.
Yeah. I have realized that we have such a huge responsibility towards each other.
Sure.
To look after each other, to look after each other's suffering, to start listening more, to start noticing what's happening around you more. I feel that we're connected to the people on the other side of the planet. So what you do here, it's got a ripple effect on what's happening on that side, So my responsibility of starting to talk about this and making people realize that we need to talk. And it's okay to be depressed and to have a bit of bipolar or whatever, it's fine, because we deal with that stuff. Because the moment you recognize it, you can start dealing with it. So
And you want
I'm
to
getting
you share and talk about it.
Exactly.
Because all we try and do constantly, always, is show that how perfect we are.
Perfect we are.
But everyone knows everyone isn't perfect. And
Everyone doesn't know that.
No, everyone knows you're not. So everyone knows everyone's actually putting up front, unless you've got really close friends. But to the people that aren't in your circle, you don't show that side. You don't say, oh, geez, man, I'm really stressed because I don't have work and it's winter and I'm supposed to have this and that. You don't tell people that because you want them to think you're successful, you're doing well, you drive a nice car, you dress well, everything's styling, because success breeds success. But everyone knows that that no one is successful all the time, and yet we all make as if that's the case. And in that lie we live. And it brings us back to what you said earlier, is you create this identity that's not really you, that becomes what you put your faith and hope and trust in. And when the world, God allows the world to show you that, dude, this facade you've built, it's worthless against the world. Look, I'm going to break it. And then you crumble. Now you come out of your rehab or the toilet cubicle and you go, okay, well, I'm not that. I'm not that. Who am I then? And now your process starts. And God says, you know what I love? There's this movie called Bruce Almighty. When it came out, it was quite controversial. It's a Jim Carrey film. And he rages. His life is perfect, and he rages against God because God says, "Listen, if you want my job, I'm gonna make you God. I think for a day or for a period." And when Bruce Almighty's like, "I can do a better job than you," so for a day, Jim Carrey becomes God. This character Bruce, and anyway, obviously, he gets the powers of God, and obviously he messes it up. And there's this girl that he's really into, but she's not into him. And eventually he comes to God and he says, God, what does it have to be God? You know? I mean, what's the purpose of having all this power if I can't make her love me? And he looks at him, and God, played by Morgan Freeman, he looks at him and goes, welcome to my world. And the movie, it gets to that beautiful in the third act where Bruce is on his knees in the rain and he's crying and it's raining, and Jim Carrey is dramatic and very comedic, and he goes, oh, that's it, I give up. I give up. And he's crying and God says, good. Now I can do my work. And it's this beautiful, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember exactly what the script line was, but that's really a beautiful, I thought it was such a good film because it's exactly what it is. We think we can do a better job than him. And until we're standing in the rain and we say, okay, I'll give up. I can't be God. And then he says, okay, now that you know that you're lesser than me, I can work with you. I can show you what I can do in your life. And that's a gosh. Like, that's your identity.
If I can tell you what's happened to me in the last 3 years, I started a production company that's happening. I'm acting again. I actually get work again. I am writing my songs again. I started a series of paintings. But the great thing about that is I also realized what a responsibility I have to keep on working on these talents, on these God-given talents, to keep on improving on that,
And that's what is on God-given, because the minute you start taking pride,
everything's just through you, and especially in a creative world.
And then you'll bring it down again. Look, now you're a child of God. Now I want to tell you something. In the past, he gave you a lot of leeway. He does that. But now that you know that leash is short, very quickly he whips you back into shape if you step out of line. He's like, hey. And then you're like, no, it's not me. It's you.
But what I'm saying is it breaks down the fear, breaks down because obviously the antidote for someone that's got a low self-esteem is to go out there and not half-ass stuff, and to live life to the fullest, and live out your dreams to the fullest, you know. Yeah. But that brings me to what's happening in your life, in your career, and
before we go,
and work-wise, and
quickly go and pee.
No, you can't, because I'm rolling.
Do you have to keep it on one roll?
How urgent is it?
No, it's fine. I can squeeze. I can hold it. It's not an age thing.
Do you really want to go?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
I drink a lot of water.
You know what?
And no, that's fine.
Give me a rundown on what's happening in your career, and then quickly a rundown on what's happening with missing children.
Yeah, but my career is, well, I mean, it's my career since the start has always been ebbs and flows, you know. And after a while, you start realizing sometimes you're in the ebbs and sometimes you're in the flows. When you're in the ebb, remember the flow's around the corner. And when you're in the flow, remember the ebb is around the corner. No one is just flying all the time. Sometimes things take a dip, and when the dips, then you need to rest in that. Use the time. Spend time with your family, with your loved ones, knowing that soon, because in our business, you're either very busy or it's very quiet. That's what I found in my life. You know, there's very little that it's in between. And so I would say I'm in an ebb in terms of big events in my life, in terms of Survivor and stuff. I've just recently done a film, like a feature that we've been wanting to do for a while, Semi-Shoot 2, which we're hoping will come out soon. That's in the process of hitting the screens. So I've had stuff, but the consistency of really big things that pay well has ebbed, and so I've had to do a lot of smaller things to keep everything going. Survivor, for 2 years we haven't produced a show because it's so expensive, and it's very it's in limbo at the moment. Survivor was a massive part of my life, huge. So we always say when, not if. It's not off the charts, and there's a couple of entities vying for the formatting, and Survivor SA is a really popular production, but it's expensive. It's one of the most expensive shows in the country, and that's why we haven't done one now. This is the second year running. So essentially, 2 years ago, I lost my full-time job in that sense, and so you get forced into that place of trust and then into broadening your horizons, which I've done. Started a podcast. I've written my own stuff. I love writing. I have my own screenplay, which we've been struggling to get going, and just doing lots of small things, content creation. Also, delving into that. I think keeping the creative juices flowing, which is our lifeblood. That's what we love doing. I always tell people when people who young ones who want to become actors or presenters, I want to be a presenter, I want to be an actor. I say, well, you can't just be that. You got to be a number of things.
Yeah.
If
you got to swing your own broom.
If I was making a living as an actor, I would be living on the streets. You need to be a lot of things to be able to do that one thing you love every now and then.
I love it.
So that's our industry.
Missing children?
Missing children still going very strong, strength to strength, in fact. About 5 or 6 years ago, my good mate Thomas, who's an exceptional businessman, took over Missing Children. I'd been running it, chairing it, for 15 years by myself, with other people coming and going as members of the board, and I'm not as astute a businessman as I'd love to think I am. It takes a certain sort of mind, a logistical mind, and a financial business mind to run an organization when it grows to such a point that it needs a number of heads. And so,
it's people that specialize in certain fields.
So I was okay at getting sponsors and bringing people in and just sort of ambassadoring the organization, but running it like it's meant to be run, I wasn't very good. Yeah. And when Tom came along, he really brought all his skills. We both volunteer our time and our skills, and he took Missing Children to a level where it became financially self-sufficient, operates like a smoothly oiled machine, and we've managed to co-align with so many other organizations that work in this realm, because one thing I can tell you is human trafficking hasn't gotten better, it's only getting worse. And so never before has there ever been a time where like-minded individuals and entities need to work together. And so that's where we are now. So still an ambassador of missing children, but its management is really handled by other people as it should be. And I love the organization. I love what we do. The people we've met through it. And I recently started a podcast that deals with human trafficking, what it looks like in South Africa, and we'll be releasing that over the next 2 weeks.
So people can find that on your pages.
Cool. Tip of the iceberg, yeah. So I'll start advertising it soon, and it's basically I interview people who work on the front lines. It's a parental advisory because we deal with like really gritty issues. It's really the bare bones of what does human trafficking look like in South Africa. You know, on the back of the Sound of Freedom movie, which is a very cinematically, beautifully taken idea of what it is, but that's only a sliver of what human trafficking looks like. What does it look like in South Africa? And that's basically what we tap into.
Let's end this conversation because you need to go make a tweede. You need to go for a second, for a number 2.
No, it's a number 1. Shame, he's always struggled with the numbers. Number 1.
Your biggest philosophy on the mind, body, soul level. Let's break it down because I know you fit. I know you read a lot. I know you pray a lot. What is your personal insights in keeping that alive? What are the routines and disciplines that you follow?
Well, yes, I think that's the best way to put it, routines and disciplines, because I think we have a tendency, like if you pour water out on the ground, it spreads and just goes wherever it's easiest. It flows wherever it's easiest, and that's a nice concept. But if you're always taking the easy way, you don't ever carve a river in the direction it should go. You know, you want all the water flowing in one direction towards a goal, rather than lots of different directions. You know, so I think discipline is how you focus that river. That is your soul and your entity. And what you want to do, you want that river to be flowing into God's great ocean. Now, this is not a Gaia-esque, pagan-esque analogy. I'm not saying God is the all. I'm not. This is not pantheistic. As a Christian, I'm just using that as an analogy because I think that's what it is aligning ourselves with Him, and then finding ourselves in that. Because we do have a separate identity. So how I do that is every morning I read the Bible. And I don't flip it, so it's not the lotto. I'm not playing the lotto every morning. I don't flip to a page and read. I think some people do that. I actually read through the Bible. And when I'm finished, I start again and I read through it. And no matter how many I've done that many, many times in my life. And even though I've read the same things over again, when I'm reading them, I'm in a different place in my life, so they have a different meaning to me. So I read from beginning to the end over and over again. And so at the moment I'm in Chronicles, which is a tough read. But the point is, sometimes it's not about what I'm reading, but that I'm reading the Bible. And what I used to do when I was younger, which I stopped doing a couple of years back, and I started again a couple of months ago. Before I get out of bed in the mornings, because I like to pray on my knees, I would slide out of the bed onto my knees and then stand up and walk. The last few years, I've been getting up out of the bed and walking. This is just a simple physical thing. It makes sense, you get out of bed and walk. But if you don't go on your knees first, you're walking on your own 2 feet. But if you slide onto your knees first and pray for God into this day, then stand up, you're walking in His footprints, as you said you want to do, because you're bringing Him into the day first. And I know it seems maybe juvenile, but I find such just the act of sliding onto my knees. And you don't have to say a fancy prayer. Sometimes I just say, Jesus, cover this day, and I get up and I walk, and I immediately feel like I've invited Him into the day before I even look at my phone, because I'm addicted to my phone and to technology and to stuff and listening to podcasts. I'm always listening to some book or a podcast all the time, and so I need to really be careful with that. So ritually, I go slide out of my bed onto my knees, get up, make a coffee, sit down and read my Bible. Unless I'm pressed for time and it's work, then I'm off. And then I try and listen to a teaching in the car. But I prep my day with God in some way. Sometimes I just listen to Gratitude sung by, what's his name?
Brandon Lake.
Oh, geez, man, that switches me on. Or something like a song like that that just immediately roots me. That's my ritual. I pray all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes on my knees, sometimes in the shower, sometimes while I'm on the loo. Most of the time on the mountains.
Yeah.
That's my church.
That's your body. That's your body's thing. So we've got soul now, body, mind. How do you keep your mind alive? So you run. You're strong. You're a very strong trail runner. I've run with you.
I'm average. I'm average. I'm average. It depends. I mean, who you're comparing yourself to. You know, I think if we go for a run now, I'll be eating your dust because you're fit now.
And because I'm competitive.
My friend Tom. We've come to realize when you're at your fittest, that's when you should have the most gratitude, because there's this cross on the mountain where I live. It's a monument from the naval days, and every time I get to the top of it, I put my hands on it as I get there. I say, "Thank you, God," one more time. And the reason I do that is because I never know if I'm going to be up here again. And many times throughout the 17 years I've been living there, there were times that all I want to do is run up there, but I've got an injured ankle. I've just had an operation. I've got flu. I don't get flu so often anymore because I do cold water dipping. But before that, you know, something would happen. You get a chest flu. Now you can't run for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you lose your fitness. And then physically, I try and stay in optimal fitness all the time. I've got a gym in the garage. For weight work, and then I run and I cycle and I swim. I've got into triathlons this year, last year.
I want to do one with you.
Freaking love it, dude. That for me is, I'll do that.
But the Xterra, not I can't run on a road.
Xterra, dude. I like off-road. I don't like ride.
I'm pretty boring.
I can see that people enjoy it, but I love trail. So what's nice about living in the Cape is Xterra takes you into the mountains, into Silver Mine. There's a dam up there, so you're swimming in the dam. Then you do your riding into Kai Forest, and you do your running in Silver Mine Mountains, and then what more do you want? So I run, ride, swim, and that's heaven. It's heaven for us, as close as we get. I always say Jesus Christ is a trail runner. He has to be, because he gave us this desire for it. When you're in the zone and you're running and you hear that crunch, and your heart is just going, and you feel like you can never stop.
I think he's a surfer.
He must be. He has to be. He has to be. You know, my philosophy, you asked about it earlier, is life is now in this life. We have eternal life, it's forever, but this life is this moment, because yesterday is gone and tomorrow may not come. So this moment you and I have shared here, this is all we have. Anything can happen when we walk out this door.
And stay present and stay conscious.
Some of the most incredible things in this world have been reserved only for those who would dare to go out and find them. Whether it be a mountain peak somewhere, an incredible river in a forest somewhere, or places inside yourself, in your mind, that you've been too scared to go, that take courage to get to. And I believe some people will only ever get to taste that who have got aligned themselves with the Holy Spirit to give them that to go out.
Man.
That's why we're adventurers.
Man, I love what you're saying.
Is an adventurer.
I know what you're saying. I feel what you're saying, and I think that's it. I think you need to go to the loo now.
You need to go,
because you can't top what you said just now. This is done now. You can drop the mic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I think we're definitely going to do a follow-up on this.
Sure, anytime.
I love you, man. Thank you so much for...
Rock, paper, scissors.
What do you want to... Oh, go ahead, let's go. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah.
I love you to the moon and back.
Good luck with everything. I'll see you on the outside.
I'm glad that you're in my life.
I'm glad you're in my life. And it's not by accident. It's by design.
Have a blessed day.
You too.